When assembling a Cleo Studio display, be sure to begin by first removing the instruction sheet as well as the hardware kit received in this packout. These items will be found in the carton containing the base and the cap assembly for the waterfall module. This carton can easily be identified by labels located on either end of the cartons received in this packout. Now that you have both your instruction sheet and hardware bag, it is best to take a few moments to review your instruction sheet and parts list to ensure that you have all the components and hardware necessary to move forward with the assembly of a Cleo Studio display. You are now ready to begin assembling a Cleo Studio display. When assembling a Cleo Studio display, we must first begin by leveling the waterfall base component using the wrench supplied to you in your hardware kit. Once level, you will insert 4 8x30mm dowel pins into the predetermined locations shown in step 1 of your assembly instruction. Next, we will install the left and right side walls as shown in step 1 of the assembly instruction, using 8 60mm silver zinc decal bolts to secure them to the base component. Repeat this step for the slide-in base component. Now, we will install the back panels to the standing sidewalls. Using 12 40mm silver zinc deco wood screws and 6 5x30mm dowel pins, we will secure the back panels as shown in step 2 of the assembly instruction. Moving on to step 3 of the assembly instruction, we will install the shelf frames to the waterfall unit. We begin by first installing the left and right hand shelf frames to the standing sidewalls. To accomplish this, we must first loosely fasten 8 25mm deco bolts to the hole positions shown on the standing sidewalls in step 3A of the assembly instruction, being sure to leave approximately a 1/4 inch gap between the screw head and the side wall. Now that you have the 8 25mm deco bolts in position on the standing sidewalls, we will now install the one left and one right frame to the standing sidewalls by hanging the frames onto the gap between the deco bolts and the sidewalls. We will then push down the frames into place and fully tighten the 8 25mm deco bolts to securely fasten the shelf frame to the standing sidewalls as shown in steps 3B and 3C of the assembly instruction. Continuing with the waterfall unit, we will now install the center shelf frames to the standing unit. First, install the waterfall center shelf frame to the display using 4 15mm black deco bolts and 2 25mm black deco bolts to secure the frame to the back panels and base of the standing unit. Next, loosely fasten 2 15mm black deco bolts to the 2 top hole positions of the center shelf frame as called out in step 4B, being sure to leave approximately a 1/4 inch gap between the screw head and the center shelf frame. Before installing the shelf frames to the center shelf frame, we must first attach the S-clip to the right hand shelf frame using one cable tie found in your hardware kit. To securely fasten the clip to the shelf frame, paying careful attention to position the clip as shown in step 4C of the assembly instruction. Now that you have the S-clip fastened securely to the right hand shelf frame, we can now install both the left and right hand shelf frame to the center shelf frame, by hanging the shelf frames onto the gap between the decal bolts and the center shelf frame. Once both shelf frames are hanging, you can now install the 6 remaining 15mm black decal bolts to the center shelf frame and fully tighten them to secure the shelf frames to the center shelf frame. Lastly, using one hand, clasp the top channel cover of both shelf frames attached to the center shelf frame and squeeze to allow for the S-clip to attach onto the left-handed shelf frame as shown in step 4F of the assembly instruction. We are now ready to install the middle and top shelves into the slide-in unit. First, using 8 25mm black decal bolts, install the 4 shelf brackets into the positions located on the standing sidewalls as shown in step 5A of the assembly instruction. Next, carefully rest the mid shelf onto the lower shelf brackets and secure by loosely fastening the 4 40mm black decal bolts through the shelf into the shelf brackets to prevent the shelf from falling off of the brackets. Do not fully tighten these bolts to allow for ease of alignment in the following step. Now that you have the mid shelf securely resting on the shelf brackets, circle around the back of the unit and tightly fasten the 2 50mm silver zinc deco wood screws through the back panels and into the mid shelf. Once you've accomplished this, you can fully tighten the 4 40mm black deco bolts to completely secure the mid shelf to the standing unit. Repeat this step for the top shelf as well. Next, we will install the header panel and top cap to both the waterfall and slide-in units. To install the header panels, first, loosely fasten the 8 25mm black decal bolts, 4 for each standing unit, into the locations called out in step 6A of the assembly instruction, leaving approximately a 1/4 inch gap between the screw head and the side wall. Once all bolts are in position, we can hang the header panels onto the gap between the screw head and the side walls, and then fully tighten the decal bolts to secure the header panels to each unit. Continuing with step 6 of the assembly instruction, assemble the top cap by fastening 2 top brackets to the top caps as shown in step 6C of the assembly instruction. Using 28 number 10 by 3/4 black washer face screws, 14 screws per each standing unit, to securely fasten the top brackets to the top caps. Lastly, insert 4 snap bushings, 2 per each standing unit, into the locations shown in step 6C of the assembly instruction. Now that both top caps are assembled, install the top caps to the standing units by sliding the top brackets into the top of the standing sidewalls as shown in step 6D of the assembly instruction. Using 16 60mm silver zinc decal bolts, 8 per standing unit, to securely fasten the top caps to each of the standing units. Install the center cabinet base brackets to the center cabinet as shown in step 7 of the assembly instruction, using 4 30mm decal bolts to securely fasten the brackets to the cabinet. We are now coming to the final steps of the Cleo Studio Assembly. At this time, position the waterfall and slide-in display units as close as possible to the final install position, as it will be very difficult to move the full lineup assembly. First, we install the center cabinet to the waterfall unit as shown in step 8A of the assembly instruction. Slot the center cabinet base bracket into the waterfall unit quirk to assist in positioning of the cabinet. Then, using 3 of the 60mm black decal bolts with shoulders to securely fasten the center cabinet to the display. Next, slide together and join the waterfall unit together with the slide-in unit, sliding the center cab base deck bracket into the quirk in the slide-in unit to assist in positioning. It is important that both units are leveled to match elevation to allow for ease of assembly in this step. Once the units are together, complete bolting all three units together by securely fastening the center cabinet to the slide-in unit. You now have the full lineup assembly of the Cleo Studio display complete. Remember to use extreme caution when moving or adjusting the positioning of a full display, as damage to the unitization of joint seams may occur. Also, it is recommended that no less than 3 able-bodied adults attempt to move a fully assembled display. Finally, install the shelf unit and center cabinet graphics. To install the graphics to the shelf unit, flex the graphic into the location shown in step 9 of the assembly instruction. As for the center cabinet graphics, simply pull the spring binder clips and loop the center cabinet graphics into the opening created. Now that all graphics have been installed, we complete the assembly of a Cleo Studio display by lastly installing white cover dots found in your hardware kit to all exposed holes remaining on the display.